You're tuned in to Voiced Thoughts Talk Show and Podcast, a forum where we discuss and explore society-based topics while advocating and providing information and resources to the community through an unscripted, unfiltered, and authentic approach. Listen on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and Apple Music. Watch us on YouTube. Join our Facebook group. Follow us on social media, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Voiced Thoughts Talk Show and Podcast, your society-based channel.
Welcome to another episode of Voice Thoughts Talk Show and Podcast. I'm your host, and my name is Danette Mahabeer-Turner, Mrs. Kentucky Petite USA 2025. I am the appointed Mrs. Kentucky Petite to represent the entire state of Kentucky in the national pageant here in July 2025 in Chicago, Illinois, and I'm super honored to be in that role. Of course, before we get started, I want to tell you guys where you can watch us and listen to us. So you can watch us on YouTube, listen on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and Apple Music. Be sure to join our Facebook group. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Voice Thoughts Talk Show and Podcast. Before we get into today's episode, I have our sponsors that make this episode possible, so we have to highlight them. Our title sponsor for season 4, Goodwill Opportunity Center. And Goodwill Opportunity Center helps individuals remove barriers to self-sufficiency, enabling their clients to overcome challenges and achieve their goals through support that is personalized to the client's needs. So visit them today at 1601 Broadway Street in Paducah, Kentucky. Our episode sponsor for episode 3 is Exit Realty Key Group. Looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? Unlock your happiness with them. Exit Realty Key Group, call 270-978-1303 or visit their website, www.exitkeygroup.com. Now, the moment that you guys are here for, season 4, episode 3, our topic today, life after loss. We have a very special guest with us, Reverend Dr. Brent D. Easton. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Danette. Good to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, sir. And who better to have than someone that's an expert in this area? You are a grief counselor. Tell us a little bit about you first.
Okay, sure. As Danette said, my name is Brent Easton. I live here in Paducah with my wife and our 2 almost adult children, and I'm a hospice chaplain. We'll just leave it at that since I'm not really representing them today. But I'm a hospice chaplain here in Western Kentucky and have been doing that for 11 years.
Wow.
And so grief and loss is something that I have come to know very well. And it's a very sad and hard time. So I'm glad to be able to speak here with you and to all of you listening and watching. I hope it'll be real helpful for you. So
Thank you so much for being here. And so I just want to delve right into it. How would you define grief and why does it look different for everyone?
That's a great question. So I would define grief as the spiritual and emotional pain that you feel when there's a loss. The spiritual and emotional pain that a person feels when they have experienced a loss. And the reason why it's so different for everybody is because we're all different.
That's true.
There's just no cookie cutter mode for grief, no one size fit all. So literally everyone grieves differently because every body is different.
I love that.
Every
answer.
relationship with the person or thing, there's lots of losses. We'll get into that.
Yes, totally.
Every relationship is different. And so that means the grief is going to be different.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for sharing. What are some common misconceptions that people have about grief?
Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of them. And those of you who have experienced loss and the aftermath of grief in your life, you know what some of those insensitive comments are, and some of those insensitive comments that are meant to help, but they really hurt more, is really coming from misconceptions. And so there's a lot of them, but I just have a couple that I could talk about here for our time. One of them is that time heals all things. I heard that today. Somebody said, well, it's just going to take time, and then I'll be okay. And time doesn't have power. Time is time. But I tell people it's what you do with that time. So time in and of itself, healing all things. We're further removed from that pain. You know, if someone's mother died, and a year goes by, you've got a year in between that pain, or that event of death. But that doesn't mean that it's healed because there's been time.
Wow.
And so that's a really poor and sad misconception, because I'll have people get a hold of me and say, it's been 2 years since my brother died, or whatever it may be, and I should be over this by now.
Right.
Well, I thought time healed everything. Sadly, it
That's
doesn't.
a misconception.
If it was that easy, we wouldn't be talking today, I don't think. People would just give it some time, and then they would
move on. I love that answer. So I'm going to piggyback off of that, because this is actually a question I had, and you kind of mentioned that with comments that people make, and they probably mean well, but it hurts more than it helps. So I had a listener who shared her personal experience of grief and loss, because she knew that this episode was coming up, and saying when people would comment to her this quote unquote term, I can't imagine what you're going through. And she mentioned that for her, it hurt instead of helped. And she can just imagine, like what other people feel when they felt that, because she had a firsthand experience with that. It's almost like they're saying, I can't imagine being in the situation you're in. And so what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a very interesting comment from our listener, because for some people that might just really resonate with them. And I'll give an example. Years ago, I was leading one of our grief support groups, and around the table are 12 to 15 people grieving. And a lady on one side of the table said, I'm so angry because the cards and the letters from people keep coming, and I can't get past this. And another lady across the table said, I wish I would receive at least one card. And so 2 different people, 2 different griefs. One was angry because she was getting too much mail. The other was angry because she wasn't getting any. And that was for me a real moment, a picture of how we really do process our grief differently. So with this person and I want to speak to you, for this situation, for people to say, I can't imagine what you're going through. I'm sure that you somewhere in your grief journey have come to realize that they mean well by that. And you might hear that as, well, try to feel what I'm feeling. You can't feel exactly what I'm feeling, but could you try to imagine how I'm feeling?
Empathetic.
And that is empathy.
That is empathy.
That is empathy. Empathy means to feel.
Put yourself in someone's shoe.
Yes.
So
you feel with them. That's what empathy means. You feel with them.
Right.
And so empathy is crucial to helping a person, helping a person kind of work on their grief and their loss.
And show support.
And show support. And so many people also that, they'll make these comments, and then later on when they've experienced a death, they've experienced some kind of tragic loss, and somebody comes around and says the same thing to them. For example, I can't imagine how you're feeling. And they say to themselves, I said that 1,000 times to people, and then realize how empty the words were. And so sometimes when we're at a lack of words, because Danette, there isn't anything we can say to make that first person feel better. They're grieving. You were grieving. And so it's better, folks, that if we just learn really what empathy is, to feel with, and then follow that up with an empathetic statement. This must be so grievous for you. Just be present with them. Give them a hug if they're a hugger. Write them a letter. You don't know, though. You may send that letter and that person may say, oh, that's horrible. I can't believe you. So it's a very, very thin tightrope.
Very sensitive.
Yes, very sensitive. And the person wanting to express some kind of condolences is really at a disadvantage, because how does that person want to be supported? And so,
as you mentioned, I think they mean well, but they just don't know the right things to say. Right, and as you mentioned as well, with everybody, grieving differently, something that might work for me, like I would want some cards in the mail. Somebody else might get angry. And so that's an eye-opener for me today as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I give one more?
Oh, absolutely.
So kind of the opposite of that statement that your caller asked about, I can't imagine. For me, if somebody were to say, oh, I know how you feel, that's a red flag right there. Because, Danette, you can't know how I feel, and I can't know how you feel. That's how unique we are. Now, if I'm empathetic, I can feel with you, right? But as far as to really know how you feel, and I'll give this example and we can move on, okay?
Definitely.
So these two women that I spoke of sitting around the same table, they both had lost their mom. And both of them had very different relationships with their mom. So I'm not saying it was these two women, but let's just say a mother that this one lady had a relationship with her mother, and she was the best thing that could have ever happened. Best mom in the world, won the award every day of her life. And the other mother was verbally abusive, emotionally abusive, physical abusive. You can't say, oh, I know how you feel. I lost my mom too.
Wow.
So I know how you feel, and I can't imagine how you feel. They're opposites, but yet can cause the same equal amount of pain.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure.
And how do different types of loss, such as death, divorce, career loss, etc., impact people differently? You mentioned that it impacts differently, but how so?
Yeah. So it is said that there are over 40 different kinds of losses.
Wow.
And that means that there are 40 different kinds of grief that could correspond to that. But again, all of those are going to be different. So a loss of a career, that's heartbreaking. If a man or woman has a career of 20 years and then they're just shoved out to pasture. A watch, maybe a job, no job, no thanks, all the faithfulness, and then you're just shoved out. That's a loss, and with that is a grief. Two people lose a career, and one is super glad that they lost it. Finally, they're out of that. They could do something that they want to do. And another person says, that was where I really got my purpose and my significance, and I need to be doing that. And so as long as they're going to try to find some replacement, that grief is still there.
Wow. I've just seen a news that's right down that line. This guy was a few days away from retirement, and then he was terminated. Oh,
so grievous.
So just think about, as you mentioned, the grief of the loss, the disappointment, just hitting him like a ton of bricks. And as you mentioned, the anger, that will come from that. So as we continue, for time's sake, what are some healthy ways to cope with grief?
Well, that's a good question, because there's all kinds of ways that people cope that aren't healthy, and I don't think we really have to drudge those up. I think we kind of know what some of those are. But a person has to find their passion to help them with their grief. And so maybe it's running, maybe it's exercise, maybe it's volunteering, maybe it's being in some kind of a service role. Those are all healthy coping mechanisms, but the danger in that is being so busy that you don't leave time to grieve. And then all you've done is block it. And 6 months, a year, 2 years go by, and maybe that portion of your life ends, and then the grief is still there waiting to be dealt with.
Wow. Wow. How do you know when it's time to move forward? Because you mentioned, healthy ways to cope and the time span in between. How do you know when it's time to move forward, and what does that mean?
Yeah. That's kind of a talk. That's kind of the language that a lot of people use. I'm ready to get over this. I'm ready to get past this. I'm ready to move on. So the literature talks about a new normal of what life is going to be like without that career that you had. A new normal without your husband whom you loved so dearly. A new normal without your child, because of some kind of death and loss. It's good to know that a new normal is coming, and it may or may not be on the horizon, maybe far down the road, but it's there. A new normal is coming in some point in your life, but racing to get there is not helpful. And wanting to get past it, check all the boxes, move through the process like an online class that you can take at your own pace. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And so I think the best way I could answer that question is that a person is trying to move on from day one. And one day they'll wake up and say, so this is my new normal. It'll resonate with them, but don't make it a goal. Don't make a new normal a goal, and don't try to push the process beyond what it dictates. So the grief process is going to push you along to where you need to be.
I love that. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Oh, wow. This is so good, and I hope that you guys are benefiting from this topic. Yeah. We're all society-based topics, and I love that we came together to bring this topic, life after loss.
Life after loss.
Wow, what a powerful topic, and thank you so much for being here.
You're
Just
welcome.
A few more questions to go, but
please.
What role do support systems play in healing after loss?
Well, they're significant.
Okay.
They're significant. And sadly, a lot of times the support that you were relying on wasn't there when you experienced that loss. Maybe it's your family. And in my experience with talking to grievers, family only endure that pain with you for so long. Now you, for example, or you out there, we might have that person in our life that is always there. They're always by your side and never leave you. That's a rare gem. And so we have to create our own support system, because typically all of those family members that say, if there's anything I can do, that's another insensitive comment. And I don't want to derail, but that's kind of an insensitive comment. Is there anything I can do? How about saying, I know that she needs her lawn mowed and that her husband used to mow her lawn, so I'm just going to go over there and mow it. It's an escape clause, Danette. Is there anything I can do for you? Don't know what it would be. Well, let me know. Not judging what the intention there was, but the action is, they're not going to call you. I did derail there, but I just thought that was a good point. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That is a good point.
So the support, let me go back there real quick. The support is we have to create our own support group. And where are those? In grief support groups. Okay. And there are several in Paducah. You can look up, and I don't represent them, of course, but griefshare.com. You type in the zip code, and it will tell you where a faith-based grief group is. A lot of churches here in Paducah. It's nationwide. Anywhere there's a hospice organization, there is a grief group.
Wow.
And it's not just for those who have had their loved ones on hospice.
Okay.
So create that support, reach out, get that help, and then become a part of that community.
I love that. Can you repeat that website one more time
for
those who are listening or watching?
Griefshare.com. Griefshare.com. It's a video workbook-based curriculum, faith-based really good. Yeah.
Awesome. So we'll put that on the screen for those who are watching.
Great.
And if you've listened, they've heard it a couple of times. And again, you can put that zip code in to find the one that's closest to you. Thank you so much for that information. All right. So what are some other do's and don'ts when supporting someone who is grieving? So we mentioned all the things not to say, things to say, but do's and don'ts.
Do listen.
Okay.
Do listen. You know, the old, I don't know if it's an old adage, but in chaplain school, it's a true adage. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Oh, yes.
You know, I had someone today as a chaplain said, okay, your turn. Tell me what you came for. And I said, what we just did. I listened to you.
Wow.
Listen to them. Stop our mouths and listen to them. Insensitive comments don't come out when we're listening. Do they even want to talk? Probably not. Maybe not at that moment. So how about just being present with them? Do listening, do presence. Those are 2 top things that to do. Yes. And to not do, think before you speak. How about that? Think before you speak. Don't speak insensitive comments. Think about it and say, how's that going to land, right? And of course, the golden rule: how would I want to be treated? Would I want someone to say, "I can't imagine how you're feeling," or "You are"? I know how you're feeling. That was the other one. I don't know how you're feeling. I do know how you're feeling. Both are wrong. So if we're listening, if we're present, we're not going to say as many insensitive comments. That's how they come across usually.
Wow. Yeah.
And so a lot of other misconceptions that we could talk about but don't have time for on this
Those
episode.
Are some powerful ones.
Yeah,
definitely eye-opening. And I hope it is for those who are watching and also listening as well. What advice would you give to someone struggling to find meaning after loss?
My counsel to someone with that would be to find out how they got meaning from the person or thing that they lost. Because if they with the loss, if they lost meaning and purpose, then their meaning and purpose was tied to that person. And to a certain extent, we can't really expect that to be any different. But what needs, if it's a wife that's left, let me just say, it's a wife that's left and the husband died. What need did he meet for you emotionally? And what are all the missing elements? Right? And then, we can't replace that. Can't replace him. Can't replace her. But perhaps you have to find that new meaning, that new normal in time. And I always tell people, or I ask people, what are your gifts? What are the gifts that God has given you? That's where your purpose is. That's why we're here, because God has given us gifts, and it's from those gifts that we make the world and the church happen. But if we're not living those gifts out, and we're getting that meaning and significance from someone or something else, then we are going to be empty in here. So I always tell people to go back to gifts. That's very easy to say. That's another conversation. But talk to somebody about that.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here today.
You're very
now,
welcome.
As a counselor, tell the listeners and viewers how they can reach you if they'd like some counseling.
Absolutely. So I have a counseling ministry called Hope Counseling, and a lot of background into why it's called Hope Counseling. But Hope Counseling, and what Hope Counseling does in a nutshell is I want to help you identify what's identifying you. Kind of goes back to that question of meaning and purpose. A lot of times we get our identity from the wrong place. That shows up in grief and loss. So I'll give you my phone number and you can put it on the screen.
Absolutely.
618-924-2502. Call or text 618-924-2502. Happy to offer hope to you in your time of hurting.
Thank you so much for being on this show with us today.
You're very
Dr.
welcome.
Brent D. Easton. It's
Thank
been
you.
a pleasure tackling the topic life
Yes.
after loss. Thank you
Yes.
so much for taking the time out to be on this show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Oh, yes. And before we go, we just want to highlight our sponsors once again. Our title sponsor for season 4, Goodwill Opportunity Center. Goodwill Opportunity Center helps individuals remove barriers to self-sufficiency, enabling their clients to overcome challenges and achieve their goals through support that's personalized to the client's needs. So visit them today at 1601 Broadway Street in Paducah, Kentucky. Our episode sponsor, Exit Realty Key Group. Looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? Unlock your happy place with Exit Realty Key Group. Give them a call today, 270-978-1303, or visit their website, www.exitkeygroup.com. Again, you can watch us on YouTube, listen on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and Apple Music. Join our Facebook group. Join us on Instagram, TikTok, and also follow us our Facebook group as well at Voice Thoughts Talk Show and Podcast. I have been your host. My name is Danette Mahabeer-Turner, Mrs. Kentucky Petite USA 2025. I will see you on the next episode. God bless.